a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. My name is Trevor Scott, and with me, as always, is Ben Slinger.
Hello, hello. And Trevor, are you sure we're a game design podcast? Because it feels like it's been a while.
We haven't been for the last couple of weeks. It's been so good to not have to think about, oh my god, what do we do with the game design? We just review a whole heap of games.
We just talk about games that we played. But yeah, tonight though, what are we doing? Something different. So recently, in fact, last Friday, it was announced that Ron Gilbert is releasing, or has been working on for the last 2 years, a new Monkey Island game. And we love our adventure games. We love our Monkey Islands. And you know what? We haven't done this in a long time. Let's do it all adventure game design, adventure game design done quick, sort of. Yeah, so for those who have listened for a long time, something we've done in the past is where we essentially dedicate...
Our very second episode was adventure game design done quick.
The idea is that we kind of dedicate a whole episode to going a bit deeper on an adventure game and actually sort of figuring out, the whole plot and maybe going a bit deeper into some of the puzzles. Mm-hmm. We're not going to exactly do that tonight. I think we're just going to...
We've matured a little bit. We realized that sometimes you can't just pick out the first idea and go, that's the one that we're going to try and milk, an hour's worth of content out of.
Yeah. So we're going to focus on adventure games. We're going to go back to our regular taking just random prompts. We might do random words. We might do some locations. And... we will come up with adventure games for them. And if one of them strikes our fancy in particular, then we might do a bit of a deeper dive.
Yeah. So we're not promising anything, but this is an all adventure game episode.
Yep.
We love our adventure games. We love puzzles.
Ron Gilbert and Monkey Island and
in honor of Ron Gilbert
team.
In honor of them releasing, one of the best things on April Fool's Day, and then confirming it like a couple of days later that no, it was a real thing. And it was like, oh my god, you bastard! In the best sense of the word.
Well, he does go by Grumpy. What does he go by? Grumpy? No, it's not bastard.
No,
Grumpy Gamer.
Grumpy Gamer. Okay, so I have a location.
Okay, let's start with a location.
80s mall.
Ooh, an 80s style. I do like the idea of an 80s style adventure game, like maybe a bit of a Goonies style sort of thing, or like obviously a Stranger Things, takes on that sort of vibe as well.
And I really think it would work well for a Metro sort of, modern retro.
Yes.
Modern retro game. So that's the term that I coined a couple of episodes ago. The modern retro style.
Yes, in that, using somewhat pixel, like lower resolution, pixel art, but utilizing sort of modern features to add, whether it like post-processing effects and different things.
Yeah, it's kind of like Thimbleweed Park, where they use the stylings from like an 80s game, but didn't have them at 320 pixels. They had them at the 1920 by 1080, but it still felt like it was this.
Yes, yeah. So I agree. Let's play with that a bit longer. I think I like the idea of a sci-fi theme, in the vein of like an ET or a Last Starfighter or a Flight of the Navigator kind of deal, where it's maybe kids discovering something in this mall.
And it's almost as if, and I can sort of see this straight away, that the mall's actually being built around like this crashed spaceship or something like that. And it's sort of like
so it's already it's sort of got that like retrofuturism style of
there's an obelisk in the middle of that is kind of,
and it just gets used as the centerpiece for them all, but it turns out
they built a fountain around it. I mean, god damn it.
It's like the tail fin of the spaceship or whatever sticking up through the ground.
There's just something about having something like that that they saw it and they go, this would be an amazing feature for a mall. That was the first thought that came through their minds.
Did they know that's what it was, or has this been
No,
hidden?
it looked great. It had this sort of fountainy obelisk-y feature. And they're like, I could build a fountain around that, and then there could be a cookie stand over there and a food.
So how long is this mall?
A food cart down the road a little bit.
Is this a situation where, for, hundreds of years, there was just this thing sticking out of the earth that people thought was just some sort of weird rock formation, and eventually the suburban sprawl spread far enough that they needed to use that land?
Well, I kind of think you could show this in flashbacks of, when they first saw it, it was just this rocky outcropping, but when they were sort of, trying to break down the rocks and all that sort of stuff, it just left the obelisk.
Instead of flashbacks, I think that'd just be a good situation for, like, when you go to, like, the mall information store center, like, they've got pictures up on the wall that you can look at, and it shows, like, the history of the building of, like, building the mall and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I like the fact that there's one photo that just shows, like, the rock formation there, and then the next photo is right where the rock formation was, there's now a fountain there.
That was the first thing they built. Yeah. Before they built walls around it or anything, they just built a fountain around this formation.
And it's like, it's in the exact same place and has, like, some of the same features that the rock outcropping had. But it feels like there's something in between that's missing, like a missing link. A missing photograph that is maybe in a safe.
Oh, I see. You're saying that as one of the puzzles is you are finding this photograph that fills in a gap in the history of the construction of this mall. Okay, that's interesting. So are the creatures that crashed here still down there? Like, essentially, I guess this ship, there's like a huge, or at least a relatively large ship that's just buried beneath this mall. Mm-hmm. Does anybody know it's there, or is these kids the first ones to discover it? Like, is this a government conspiracy sort of deal?
I don't think this is a government conspiracy per se. I think this is a mall conspiracy. That the guy
cops.
Who owns
the mall cops know.
Yeah, the guy that runs the mall has hired, like, scientists and all this sort of stuff. So the mall is just to fund his scientific operations on the spaceship underneath. So in his office and just behind the food court, there's actually a elevator that has, like, a slot card sort of thing, key card. And I like the idea of seeing some, like, scientist coat wearing motherfuckers, swiping their card and going down into the elevator. And then when you go to push the button, it's like, it's a normal elevator that opens up. It's not like that red lighted tinged,
Oh no, you can go to, like, the mezzanine level and,
I think that when you swipe your card, it sends a different elevator, like a different elevator car.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool.
All right, so how do we... Maybe let's think of the characters that are involved.
Okay, so there's Becky. She works at like one of those really, fancy women's clothing shops. I
thought you were referencing something for a second there, but you just came up with it really quickly. Okay. Well, how many people?
I nearly said Becky and she works at Fashionable Mail, but then I'm like, that's just a Mallrats thing, and I'd rather go for something a little bit more closer to what
we can
she's
throw a couple
doing.
of Mallrats references in there as side jokes for sure, but. In some of the stores, maybe there is a Fashionable Mail store, or maybe a kid gets, like, caught in the escalator.
That kid is on the goddamn escalator again.
Stan Lee's just standing there talking about the Hulk's dick.
Yeah, LaFours is there, like, looking after.
We just named one of
an erection.
Well, we just named one of the random, like, mall cops, LaFours. No, that's the only reference. Okay, so...
Get out of here, you mall rats. And that's the only thing that he says, like, because he actually speaks in this.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't speak in the actual movie.
Well, because we can't actually make it, like, we might run into legal trouble. His name's LaFives.
Nice.
Okay, so we've got Becky. Is she like what age are these kids? Because I feel like there's always a good relationship tension if we've got maybe like maybe she's like the older sister of like younger
a teenager.
kids.
So I think
like maybe she's like 17 and then there's like a 13
I was thinking,
or 14-year-old.
No, Becky's like 23. So she can drive a car. She's
okay.
But her younger sister is, the 15, 16-year-old sort of thing. And, she's having to drive her everywhere. It's like, can you drive me to the mall and blah, blah, blah. I think she's our main character.
Becky is?
Becky is.
Okay. That's interesting because I was thinking more that if we're sort of going this sort of E.T. Stranger Things sort of vibe, I would have thought you'd go for the younger kids. But
this is why I want to break away from that mold.
Yeah, that's fine.
You still got them and they're integral characters. Like they're integral to the story.
I like then using that trope, having a bit of fun with it. Like the younger kids are off having their own adventure as part of this.
Yeah.
But we don't follow them.
They're off having their own adventure, and it's literally you keep on seeing them, and they're like being chased by a fat guy and a skinny guy, and someone beat up the Easter Bunny, and there's all this stuff going off to the side,
right?
And they're being chased by little fives and
all
this sort of stuff. So it turns out that everything that's going on is sort of happening behind the scenes in the mall, like in the back alleys that only Becky actually has access to because she's a worker at this mall.
Yep.
She's an employee of the mall, and she gets called up to the office of the CEO, the mall mall manager or whatever,
the mall man.
In fact, his name is Hans Mole.
Hans Mole Man.
Mole Man. No relation. I'm 37 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we stick a pin in this one here.
Sure.
And it's like, that's actually, a pretty cool,
I think
cool premise. And
to develop that further, I like where we sat with that. So let's move on.
Mm-hmm. Your turn to get something. What do you want to get?
Yeah.
Do you want to get a relationship? Do you want to get a location?
Here's an interesting one. We have a relationship between a farmer and a scarecrow.
Ooh, I do like that. That sort of. What's your main character though? Is it the scarecrow?
Well, so you could go a few ways with this.
Let me rephrase that. Who is the main character and why is it the scarecrow?
I knew you were going to say that. So, okay, you could go a few ways with this. The scarecrow, one way you could do it is as a bit more of a reflective sort of thing where you play the farmer. The scarecrow is literally just a scarecrow. Right?
Does he have a gun?
The farmer? The scarecrow?
No, the scarecrow.
Oh, the scarecrow. Right. Wizard of Oz style?
Yeah.
I mean, he might at some point. No, but you could do an interesting little. I mean, and this could be a good, sort of good candidate for a smaller game. Because I should mention one of the other reasons we brought this up is that we're potentially participating in an Adventure Game Jam in June, where we might actually.
I mean, the game that I kind of think that we should actually just make for that is a little game called Blind Reflection.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I think it's too big, even. I know
too big.
It's
one fucking room.
Well, no. Anyway, let's not go into that. We can talk about that offline. But no, a farmer kind of coming out to the field day after day to sort of talk to this scarecrow, and you could have the scarecrow answer back. You could have it be a dialogue, but essentially it's in his imagination, in a sense, he's talking things out about things that are going on with this scarecrow. And you could do some interesting things like have the backgrounds change, have the crops grow over time, have the seasons change, and just use it sort of as a window into this farmer's life. And it doesn't have to be completely mundane. It could be weird and funny and whatever, but...
That the Scarecrow is literally his best friend, and, you know, on one fateful autumn day, he realizes that he really likes the Scarecrow and invites him to dinner. Like, and then you have the whole scene of them having a dinner together, and it's just the one-way conversation of him just talking to the Scarecrow.
That's the end of the game is just this really nice portrait. It's like a very Norman Rockwell style portrait, warm family dinner of the farmer, his wife, his 2 kids, and a fucking Scarecrow sitting at the table. And the rest of his family is just like, what the fuck is going on here? But the farmer's just like calmly serving mashed potatoes up for the Scarecrow.
And then you see the next photo, and he's trying to feed the Scarecrow.
Yeah, and the farmer's wife is like rounding up the kids to leave because they're just like,
he hasn't noticed.
Lost it. No, he hasn't noticed.
He hasn't noticed. He's fallen in love. Okay.
All right. Did you want to take the Scarecrow farmer relationship in a different direction, or should we?
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea of maybe having the farmer. You know, he comes out one day and the Scarecrow is no longer there.
Okay.
And so his whole like the whole game is investigating on his farm where the Scarecrow was gone. And you can just go between a few different things of, like, his questioning his wife. Did you hear anything last night?
Yeah.
Did you hear any rustling out in the cornfield and blah, blah, blah. You can almost trail it back to the barn where, you know, you see like little tufts of straw being left, you know, leading in there, but you don't see anything in there. There's just like, maybe there's a straw bale that has actually been sort of broken apart a little bit, and maybe you go, was it actually a line in the other direction?
That someone's taken some straw from there. Yeah. That's an interesting sort of little investigation sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's sort of this farmer that's looking around on his farm, not actually doing any of the work that he needed to do for the day. Instead, he's just looking for a Scarecrow. And you can choose which way you want to go with that, whether it's, you know, the kids down the block actually, you know,
they stole it and they're like,
they stole it
to a bike and are throwing it down the hill,
or attached it to the front of a truck and is like scaring people duel style.
Or it's a what's the magical snowman book? You know, there's that book,
Jack Frost
picture book. Snowman.
Frosty the Snowman.
No, anyway, it just gave me the vibes of like the sort of the inanimate being that comes to life and kind of has a day. Maybe the Scarecrow came to life for a young kid who was lonely, right? And they've spent the whole day playing, and the kid has a new friend, but that at night the Scarecrow has to come back into its into its field and plant itself back down and become an inanimate object again. But you only see it from the farmer's point of view. So you're like, what the fuck? Where the fuck is my Scarecrow? And this little kid having all the
crops
adventure.
All the crops literally being eaten and all this sort of stuff. It's like, fucking Scarecrow, not do his job. I swear, if he hadn't unionized, I'm gonna fire him.
Damn Scarecrow union. So I want to take this to just a different direction slightly, where, because I did think for the Adventure Jam, the idea of a single location that one person or people come back to regularly at different times is appealing to me. For one, just for the scope of a jam game, because you can, you just utilize a single location and maybe change certain things about it to indicate time passing or different times of day and that sort of thing. What other sort of situations can we think of? Like, what other sorts of locations where you could have that sort of story of
classroom?
Okay. So you just single location in a classroom.
Mm.
I do like that. You could do it with the same teacher over years or something. As these kids,
and a final scene of 40 years later, and it's like cobwebs everywhere, and it's still the same sort of setup.
Yeah,
like the alphabet that's on the wall is faded, and there's graffiti on the walls, but it's the exact same scene. It's just many years later.
So how would that play out then? Are you thinking? If we've got the alphabet on the wall and stuff, you're thinking primary school teacher, like early age
I'm thinking
kids.
I'm thinking grade 6. So it's that time of year. It's that time where kids are graduating out of their primary school, going to a new school, and it's a scary and to me that when I think of when I was a kid, that was like when I went from being on top of the world, you're the king of the playground sort of thing. And then all of a sudden you get brought down to the bottom of the rung again.
Yeah. And that's a good age because it's pre-puberty, for most kids at least.
Yeah.
Lots of questions. Okay. So how do you think this would play out? Would it play out over the course of a single class, or are we seeing the same teacher with multiple classes coming through essentially and doing one
I almost think
day
that this is... You could almost have it as parent-teacher interviews. Parents are coming in, and the only thing that you can tell is different, that each parent that comes in, she's got something different on.
Right.
And it could actually be that she's talking to, I don't know, maybe even it's the same parent. It's the parent of multiple kids that have all come through, and they've all had the same teacher.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out then, because you obviously don't just want each little, because I'm sort of picturing this, as like a series of vignettes, essentially, different days. But you need some through line there. You need some development of these characters. But I do like that idea then of a family who, you've taught the oldest kid and maybe they've just gone off to high school, and then now the next kid's in your class. But from that, you hear about the older kid. You also, and you hear about the rest of the family in these ways. So maybe the relationship between this teacher and the kids in this family, and the parent or parents, perhaps, or if it is parent-teacher interviews, or maybe you switch back and forth. Maybe you have a day in the classroom, and when one of these kids is here, and then the parent-teacher interview for that kid or something. Because you could see things like maybe the parents are together the first time, but, they don't get along very well. And then the next one is a few years later, and it's it's just the single mum now, separated, or the dad brings them in, or whoever.
I mean, this is probably for a different game entirely, but what's immediately gone into my mind is, what if something weird is happening to this teacher and she's actually traveling through, she's been displaced in time.
Okay.
And for some reason, I'm just seeing that she's having to answer these questions that the parents have on the kids.
Yeah.
But she doesn't
remember,
she's literally we're seeing it as this is her travels through this one particular evening doing parent-teacher interviews, but it's the parents keep on coming back in, and
it's a different time. Yeah.
It's set in a different time period. She actually gets the youngest kid first, and she's hearing all these stories about the older kid, about how messed up his life was and all this sort of stuff, and then maybe that gives her something to. And depending on
that's kind of cool.
Her decisions that she can actually make, you can then hear that, he's actually doing really well at university now, and blah, blah, blah.
Or because you're going from backwards in time.
Not necessarily backwards. I'm sort of thinking that jumping around a bit.
I think there's a certain, and again, with this sort of game, I sort of tend towards, making it somewhat reflective or bringing in some pathos or sort of thing, but there's something about the idea of, that you know what's going to happen because you are going backwards in time. So you've seen the youngest kid first in your class, and then as you go back in time, you see the other kids, and like you've heard that the oldest kid has had a fucked up life or whatever. That then you get all the way back to where now you're with that oldest kid, but no matter what you say, it's not going to make a difference. You know what I mean? It's already happened. Well, but I think that's I think you would find actually for teachers that's a very like heart-wrenching kind of thing, because that's kind of what the situation they're in every day a lot of the time. Like they see what's happening and they have such actual limited influence to affect not to say that a teacher can't, greatly affect the future of a particular child, but a lot of the time they have very limited influence to actually change things. So I think doing that in that way where it's like this older teacher and she's essentially like slipping back through time, almost as if just going through her memories, but you play it as if it's this, as if it's this time travel thing.
Okay. So just open, like game opens.
Yep.
Cobwebs everywhere.
Yep.
Old school classroom.
Yes.
She walks in.
Yep. She's elderly.
And she picks up something, or opens up her desk drawer and just looks at a snow globe or something like that.
There's a letter from this kid or something.
There's a letter from the kid and there's a bright red apple on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a creepy.
Yeah. It's like out of place. Yeah.
It's fresh.
Yeah.
And she picks it up and she's reading the letter. And she takes a bite.
Yeah, okay.
And then, bang. She's in a parent-teacher interview.
She's in a parent-teacher interview. Or like a three-way, like the kid's there.
Yeah. The really shitty interviews where the teacher really can't unload.
Yes. I like that a lot. I like that through line of every time she takes a bite, she goes back.
She slips.
But she's got no other choice. Like, once the interview's over, like, what's she going to do? Like, she just has to take another bite.
I like the idea that once she picks up the apple and it's the inventory puzzle is literally when to take the bite.
It's the one inventory puzzle. The rest is all dialogue.
And we've got this whole inventory system of like she's got an apple peeler, like she finds at one stage, and she can like
you can prepare the apple in different ways throughout the whole game. You can like dip it in toffee, make a toffee apple. It's just like,
but the further back in time it goes, the more rotten it gets.
Ooh, maybe.
I don't know, or is it just a time-based thing? It gets slightly more brown as it oxidizes.
Just in the bits, yeah.
You look at it in your thing as like, you started this game 12 months ago. It does not look good.
Oh, it's like literal, like physical time based.
I think it's based on when you actually started the game. So if you let it go for like,
that's kind of ridiculous.
No, but it's
I
like,
think you could throw in. I think you could throw in some jokes around, or some like dialogue around it, where once you've gone through a few of these, like she can make a comment about like, oh, this apple's getting brown, I need to finish it quickly, and like she'll take it. You can take a bite like mid-interview. You don't wait for it to finish in that one.
But if you do that, it comes into the next one mid-interview, and you hear like.
Yeah, maybe. I think that would be challenging story-wise, but I think you'd want to build those moments into it. But from a story point of view, I really like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, sort of picturing a family with 3 kids, and yeah, you come in, you're hearing from both the parent and the kids, and I think you have opportunities to talk to them separately, whether it's just like you send the kid out of the room to have the time with the parents, or vice versa. But essentially,
there's a set piece right in the middle where little Timmy's got his hand stuck in like a door, so the parents go off to help him, and the kid just looks at you, and you know what he's done because this is like after he's been sent to prison for murder, like. You know, that's what you found out about
during primary school.
No.
You're saying after this is after you've found out that later in life, right? Okay, and then you've gone back in time enough that now he's younger. Right.
Now he's younger, and it's like you're seeing him, and he just looks at you, and he goes, "That's a pretty dress," and it's like it goes with, you know, obviously the revelation that, you know, he collected dresses and I don't know, created a dress out of human skin or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, something
and it's like,
that
something really fucked up.
Plays very differently. Is perfectly innocent if you're seeing it for the first time, but plays very differently. Maybe you can even have it that maybe actually the very first scene you go back into is all the way back in time with this kid. So you see that scene first.
And it's your first interaction with him on his first day.
Yeah.
And like you get the chance to tell him off, but you realize that there's nothing you can do for him.
Something like that.
It's hard,
or I think, but because I think you want the teacher to have a connection to this kid.
Yeah.
I don't know that you want necessarily the through line of like,
this kid is a murderer.
This kid is inherently evil. I think it would have to be a bit more nuanced than that.
She ruffles his hair and notices the 666 just behind his ear.
The Antichrist the whole time. Yeah, look, and I think this is one of these situations where if we were to do this, we would need to hire a writer who has experience in putting together this.
Someone who doesn't suck like we do.
Better stories. I think we're good at coming up with, you know, this types of stories and types of ideas, but to actually do it well.
Execution, we suck.
We just need more practice.
So what we're going to do is we're going to click again because I don't think we've found the nugget yet. The tasty nug.
And we may not, but
and if we don't, then that's fine.
I think we've had some.
We're enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, I think we've had some.
I'm
cool
laughing.
Ideas, I think we've had some cool ideas.
Hopefully, you're laughing at my poor attempts at jokes. I'm not trying to gag.
Are you
out
talking
of them.
to me?
I'm just trying to.
I find them just hard to listen to.
Yeah.
All right.
He says with a big smile on his
face.
Because I just cut that bit out.
We give each other too much power in the edit. Do you want to give me something, or you want something else?
I can give you something.
Sure, let's go.
Newscaster or news anchor and weather forecast.
Okay, this could definitely be a fun one. I think we've done something along these lines before, but not as like a classic kind of point and click sort of thing. This strikes me as would work well with that Maniac Mansion-y sort of style, actually. The big head sort of.
Yeah. So I can picture this as you actually control both characters.
Yep.
That I don't think it has to be a super investigative sort of game.
No.
It's more that the green screen has gone missing. So
well, it doesn't even have to, like, because sometimes I think it's good for these adventure games to just. Obviously, there are puzzles. Like, there are things you are trying to solve.
Yeah.
But it can be things that, like, I do like having a puzzle with the green screen where you have to, like, find something green to hide something or to, you know, that sort of thing. But not that there's
and we can joke about
like
it because,
a crime that's happened or a
when the news forecaster turns up in his green jacket and he walks in front of it and all you see is like this floating head, it's like, it gives you the idea that you can hide something green. Like, where you don't want people to actually find out that, you know, that's where this is. And maybe there's.
Yeah. Well, maybe something like, I'm trying to think of what is something that the weather person might want near them during the broadcast that they don't want other people to see they have.
A blanket.
Okay.
A comfort blanket.
I guess the only challenge is like probably can't really be something that they'd wear or put on them because it would be very noticeable if they disappear. I was almost thinking like, and I don't know that this is the way you'd want to go, but like, oh, they're an alcoholic, and so the way that they have their booze near them is like they cover the bottle in green or whatever, right? I don't think that's a good story hook, but just that it's something like that where there's something they want that they can pick up and take, you know, take a sip from or take a part of or use in some way. Or maybe it's they just like they want their pet close by or something.
So they put them in like one of those green spandex suits.
Yeah, like a morph suit. You have to. So that's the puzzle: is you have to construct a morph suit for your fucking chihuahua or something. Or it's like your pet is like one of those fucking hairless cats, and you have someone to paint it green.
It's like a Day of the Tentacle style puzzle where you can just,
I think, go a bit wackier like that, you know.
Dip them into the paint.
Yeah, but you know, if you want to, before you dip them into the paint, you have to distract or like get rid of the, you know, the PA who deals with the green screen paint or whatever. You know, like you have to those sort of cascading little puzzles. I think going that kind of wacky, funny, I mean, essentially Monkey Island style thing.
Okay,
for this
so
setting.
I kind of want it to be something like super innocent, that it's like the network executive says to the weatherman and the news forecaster, if you can somehow sneak your pet into the place, do a whole broadcast, and I don't notice, you both get a raise. Like, and it's like simple stakes like this. So it's like, it's all about hiding the pet or something like that. And
I think you just want to come up with, like, maybe this is higher stakes than you want, but like, it's a struggling news company or whatever, right? Like they're about to shut down, and so the goal of the whole game is essentially finding a way to keep it running and do a good enough job, you know, to turn things around a bit. But yes, like the weatherman. Let's say the news anchor's a woman, the weatherman's a man, just for simplicity here. The weatherman has some sort of like anxiety problem. They need their service animal next to them.
The weatherman can. The weatherman tells you about the heat wave that's hitting next week.
Yes.
I don't know why I just went into the Candyman, but it's
it
like...
makes sense. Yeah,
it makes sense.
Weatherman.
And I was just thinking about like a heat wave, and it's like, I know the sensationalist news that, you know, they're trying wacky things like, you know, sensationalizing everything.
Because you could even have because you just said heat wave, and that made me think the cat's sweating off the green paint. So you have to then it's part of the puzzle is like, oh, you need a fan set up at the same time. But then that starts like blowing the papers around. So you've had to find the like 3 or 4 things that you need to actually do a good broadcast where things don't go wrong.
Yeah, because I'm liking the idea that one of the puzzles is you got to find a paperweight, and then because you don't want it to show on the screen, it needs to be green. So
yeah, well, yeah. So what I was going to say is maybe the way you could structure this, maybe it's not just the news anchor and the weatherman. Maybe the goal basically is everybody has to put in one flawless segment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you split it up. There's like, okay, first we're doing the weatherman. And I don't know if you do it as a Day of the Tentacle, Monkey Island sort of thing where you can switch between them at any time. I don't know if you need that.
No, I like the idea.
You could just do it as a segment of like, okay, first,
it's a vignette.
Yeah, you start with the weatherman, and the other people are there. You can talk to the other characters and have stuff happening there, but they're not doing their broadcast yet.
Well, what I find funny, and what I think that we could actually do as part of this game is, the news isn't live. It's filmed, and
right.
they just try to film that segment, and then when they throw it, it's like, so your thing is you have to know what order that you were doing things in to try and make the edit a lot easier for.
That could be one of the puzzles, maybe, of just like
thanks, Bill.
Almost a insult sword fighting kind of thing. Of you have to make sure to like the news anchor hands off to you differently every time, and you have to give a response that makes sense or something, or you have to have a joke ready that is funny enough or whatever. The news anchor always sets you up with a setup and
with a weather-based pun,
and you have to have you have to have the pun. And whether that's just a dialogue puzzle or whether you do almost do an insult sword fighting thing of like you have to gather the puns or something, but you have to have learned them. or again,
and where you learn them is you get your phone out and you're looking, you Google them.
No, well, I'm thinking like you could, and this is almost a direct rip-off of insult sword fighting, but you make it an homage, where as part of the segment for the Weatherman, he tries out puns with people, or like every different person you talk to will have a different setup that you can give a pun to, but then in that same Monkey Island way, when the news anchor gives it, they give a different setup, but you've got the answers from the other setups that will work with those ones.
Okay, so you can do setups, they can do setups, and they all just love weather puns here.
Yeah. It's just very whimsical.
That's
all love weather puns.
That's Twiggy's favorite thing. He loves insult.
Twiggy is a good name for a weatherman.
Insult weather fighting. And
so you've got the weatherman, you've got like maybe the sports section, maybe one or two people in the who like have a sports segment or something. Or maybe you've got like the reporter in the field doing a fluff piece, so you could have a different setting if you wanted. And yeah, each of them are trying to record the perfect thing, but they're all have like you're all trying to record the perfect show. And so every time you do record the weather, the news anchor hands off to you in a different way or whatever, and it gets pissed off at you when you screw it up or whatever.
It gets pissed off at you when you swear.
Yeah,
because there's a very rude one that that fits in every single time. Should we put a pin in this one as well? Because I don't.
Yeah. Look, I don't think we're
going to find the note tonight.
I think with the time left, I don't think we're going to go super deep. But I do like that news one. That's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. You give us a location or relationship.
Okay. Interesting one. In the sense of the single location sort of thing again. A limo.
Ooh, okay.
So I kind of like that idea of, and again, you could keep this one quite simple. This could be a good Adventure Jam one where you just almost have the one perspective, maybe through the front windshield or from behind, and you just see the people in the rear vision mirror or something like that. And it's, mostly dialogue based again, and it's maybe you don't, limo's probably fine, but maybe they've got like different, they take different jobs. So it's like across the course of a night, they're like picking up people who are maybe celebrities, kids going to prom, fucking
busy night,
billionaires or whatever. Yeah, like it's a car service essentially. Like it's more of like a fancy car service. You don't have the limo the whole night.
It's Liuber. It's Liuber. Limo
Uber. Yes, that's what they call it.
And so I think the first person of the night is the billionaire, and he accidentally drops out of like a wad of cash that the kids from the prom
find.
And I like the idea that you sort of go through these different things of, it's almost a dialogue thing between you, the limo driver, and the
passengers.
And the passengers.
Yes. I guess the challenge with this one would be I could see this being like you could just do essentially an interactive fiction sort of thing where there's a lot of dialogue. You can make different choices to sort of get different results, but where the challenge might be is if we want actual adventure game style puzzles in here, how that would work in.
I think the sort of stuff that you could put into this is that I just had an idea and it just flipped it away, and I'm like fucking pissed off that it's like
just out of reach.
Because I just thought, oh, and at one stage his mum calls, and that's what kind of threw me, because
the driver's
I'm like,
mum?
Yeah, the driver's mum.
Yeah.
That, like, she's trying to call, and there's like the billionaire's talking to you, and you just get the phone call up on the screen, and it's like, no, I'm hearing all this stuff, and it's like, and then the billionaire's about to tell you the secret to making money. It's like, oh, did you just hang up on your mum?
I can't talk to someone who would disrespect their mum like this. No, who are we kidding? If they're a billionaire, they've already fucked over their mum.
I thought you were going to just say fucked.
They've already fucked their mum. No.
Stop.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Elon.
No.
Elon.
Now.
Elon's awful. Okay. And he only owns Twitter, not podcasting yet.
Hmm?
He only owns too much of Twitter, not podcasting yet.
You just said yet. Do you know something? Have you been hearing around the traps?
I've got a through line to Elon Musk. Yeah, it's my secret's out.
Oh my God.
I used to be his best friend, now I'm his mortal enemy. We just had a falling out and... No, anyway.
Okay. I have a location,
okay,
and we can go anywhere with this.
All right, give us it.
Planet MB204.
Okay. MB stands for Mega
Botox.
It's a very smooth planet. It's just a very smooth surface. It's made out of pure aluminium.
On this planet, we focus in on a life coach and a client.
On a new planet. All right, so you've made it this far. You're working so well, but next... Yeah, okay.
Ooh, okay. A zookeeper and a human.
Oh, is the human in the cage?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a bit of a... what's that Star Trek pilot episode?
The Cage.
Is that what it's called? The Cage? Yeah.
Yes, it's called The Cage.
That's cool. I do like that idea of being in a human zoo, or at least being in a zoo as a human.
So, you, the human, are just trying to escape the zoo.
Yep.
And the zookeeper, I don't know, I kind of like the idea that the zookeeper isn't actually, like, he's not the owner of the zoo. He's not the one who's actually keeping you. He's just an employee, and he can be, brought over to your side. Like, you can.
I like this. Let's think of where. So when the game. Well, no. Okay. First, let's think of how was this person abducted? Are they like an astronaut? Are they? Is this more in the future, and they are like a Starfleet, like a that sort of traveling through space, or were they abducted from Earth and they're just like a random person?
I think they were abducted from Earth.
Okay.
And they were just housewife.
Okay.
They were abducted, and now they're
hanging up the laundry outside on the Hills
intergalactic.
Hoist.
Yep. Intergalactic zoo.
And in fact, the Hills Hoist got sucked up too, so it's in there.
It's in there.
Yeah. It's just a whole chunk of ground of the Hills Hoist and some grass.
Yeah.
Got plopped into your cage.
Every morning, like when the zoo participants come through, down comes a load of wet laundry that she's just got to...
She just has to hang it up. Okay, there's some good commentary we could do here on like feminism and stuff too, and gender roles. But from a puzzle point of view, I think Well, I think certainly just learning to communicate with the zookeeper or with like your, zookeeper. You can't understand them at first. You have to. Like,
you can't understand them at first until you find out that like the food that you've actually been eating is actually just like an earplug that you put in. Like
you think you've. It just looks like a hot dog. So you've been eating it and when you finally do put it in, they're like, finally, we've been giving you this thing and you just keep eating our translators.
You do realize that like the reason why you haven't been, we haven't been giving you water or anything like that. That's what all those like injections are for you.
Yeah,
like
we don't actually
keep you
have
hydrated.
to feed, like, yeah. We have the technology to just, immediately have your body be satisfied, but you keep eating the personal translator. Like, it's driving me crazy.
And that's why we've actually kept you in this zoo. Like, we thought you were dumb as all shit.
Yeah, we thought you couldn't be released into the wild because you wouldn't survive.
So we know that this is what you like to do. What you like to do on your. We know that this is what you like to do on your home planet. So we just wanted to make sure that you were
happy and
you were happy hanging up the wet laundry, even though
cloth cover, the weird,
even though like
body coverings.
Even though we've got the technology, we've got dryers. Like we could have dried it for you, but we thought this
dryers. I was going to go to like, haven't you noticed we're all naked? Like we've evolved past the need for clothes. It's like, no, we've got dryer technology. You don't need to hang it up here. We pump in this warm breeze that dries the laundry. Like, so are you saying at the end of the game? Then, like, when you finally put,
hey, Steve, this human can talk after all. Maybe they are actually kind of smart. Like we can actually understand them now because she stopped eating the hot dog. They just call it a hot dog.
Well, that's the translator having trouble. Like,
yeah, because obviously there's no words in English that actually make sense for that.
The hot dog is the closest one.
Yeah.
So maybe that is just maybe they tell you all that, but
you didn't have to go in the bucket the whole time. We've just pushed this button here.
Push this button here, and we teleport the waste out of your body.
In fact, because you're always just sustained food wise, like there is no waste product because we give you exactly what you need.
Yeah, the only reason
been used.
The only reason you had to shit is because you keep eating the translators. It's putting off the calculation.
It all comes down to like you go through this whole game trying to escape, and this is the whole thing that it is. It's a big misunderstanding.
You go through the whole game trying to escape, literally eating hot dogs every day because we don't give you the option until you like have solved a certain puzzle to be able to put it in your ear.
But it's when you actually notice when you pick up the hot dog and then you look at the window and you see the zookeeper going. He's been doing it the whole game. You just didn't realize.
That's really funny.
Now we don't have to go to that way. Like that's us laughing our asses off. But,
yeah, that's a bit ridiculous. Although I do like, I do think one of the early puzzles essentially being to figure out how to communicate with the zookeeper, but perhaps the other like the zoo visitors and stuff as well.
Mm. Now, I suppose the question is, do you want to get it to the point where, because again, what I find funny is these aliens have got such technology, but, I'm imagining they've got like a door at the back that has like an old school lock on it, and she's like trying to work out how to lock pick and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, not realizing this is all part of their plan. They just want to see what she does.
Right. She's like a rat in a maze. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's experiments on her.
Experiments, and it's all to sort of see. is she actually good enough to join our society sort of thing? Or is she just going to sit back and just let us keep on
just meeting her needs, and she doesn't, ask for anything more, essentially.
Doesn't strive for more.
Yeah, I like that idea. Particularly, I like that idea of, perhaps before you do, manage to communicate with them, then it's about trying to escape. And there are these methods of escape that you manage to figure out. It's like you break off a piece of the Hills Hoist and you can unlock the lock that's on.
You got a crank now and you can.
Yeah, well, you take the crank off and you can, But then when you do.
It turns out that their entire system in here is crank-based.
It's all crank-based. It's just a crank-based future. That's pretty funny. That just everything's crank-based. There's no buttons, no levers. You just have to crank things. And everyone in this world just has their own personal crank that they carry around. Like, there's not cranks just on things.
No.
There's just the connection points for cranks.
Yes. And it just so happens they happen to be the exact
same as a good old Aussie Hills Hoist. In fact, you find out that the Hills Hoist is
alien technology from Area 51 or whatever.
Alien technology that made its way into outback Australia and was then the whole Hills Hoist is actually like an antenna. It's a communication system. When you put it up with the crank, because of course
I've got one in my backyard.
You somehow end up going back home and activating all the Hills Hoists across suburban Australia into a big communication network.
And you actually say, the final thing is you go on national news and they say, "Oh, so Tammy, you've just returned back from being away for the last 6 months. What can you tell us?" Don't hang your washing up on the Hills Hoist. They're all. It's an
alien communication network.
Network, and you're kind of screwing up their plans. Like, we can't. They want to talk to us, and
they just think you're completely
the wet washing is actually causing communications breakdowns.
Oh my god. That's part of, like, when you're up there in the zoo, that's part of also what they're wondering is, like, we put a communications device in there. Why does she keep messing it up by putting wet clothes on it?
Let's see if she's smart enough to stop doing that and put it in the dryer.
But the dryer just looks like a fucking swamp. I don't know.
So what I was actually thinking is she does actually have like a crank hole on her leg. And it turns out that there's like Go-Go Gadget legs that if she puts the crank in,
she finds a crank hole on her leg.
Yeah, because they've got the medical technology.
They've augmented her
to have like pogo legs or some bullshit. I don't know. You can.
Yeah. I feel like this idea is just like bouncing back and forth between actually realistic and then just completely wild. And I think we'd end up somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Which is good because
the joke of everything being crank based is pretty damn funny.
is fucking great. And the fact that Hills Hoists are actually alien communications devices is great.
Yes, I think you could use that. I think you could.
The crank hole in the leg, that's too far. So now I know that.
Well, even the Hills Hoist thing, I think, just them being like, "Oh, we accidentally dropped an old antenna, and then you guys turned them into clotheslines." Like, they don't necessarily all have to be functional. It's just like you've utilized that design or something like that as a little bit of a throw off thing, and to justify the fact that everything's crank based.
You actually when you do finally get to the bridge, because I think what happens is you do actually escape and you make it out to not the bridge. You're not on a ship. You're on a planet. You make it out to the shipyard, which is actually just outside of here, and you see a ship come flying in and it's got a Hills Hoist on top.
Yeah,
as the antenna.
Well, yeah, all the buildings. Every building has a Hills Hoist on top, like where we would have like a satellite dish. It's a Hills. It's exactly like a Hills Hoist. Just spinning away.
Yep. And it's like the crank is there to, just raise it up a little bit or drop it down a little bit.
Yeah, it's like tuning it. Yeah, definitely. That's really funny.
Okay.
So Tammy, all right. So let's just run through it. We are running out of time, but let's just run through it.
This is our official deep dive on this one.
Yeah.
Like,
Tammy wakes up in the zoo.
Day 333.
Well, is that where we want to start it, or do we want to start?
I think so.
So she's been there that long.
Yeah.
Maybe not 300. Maybe not. Maybe
133.
All right. So like a few months. And has she just been hanging laundry every day? Like, has she not been trying to escape all this time?
I like the idea that she wakes up. The first day is like, it's the last normal day that she actually gets. So you get the whole routine of she kind of like Broken Age when you remember the start of that, where you've got that routine that he's going through, and it's all kiddie based sort of stuff and kind of, so dumbed down. And then after you get out of that,
do we not reveal necessarily that she's in this zoo right away? Do we make it seem like, and it could have some of the future technology, perhaps?
Okay. So
like
the question is then, is she in like this farmhouse? She goes out, hangs up stuff on the lines and all this sort of stuff. And after she goes through, makes dinner, does all this sort of stuff, a la your Heavy Rain sort of
or just
feeling of a mundane sort of thing.
You just give it's like
it zooms, like maybe the camera moves to a camera that's on a wall, and it kind of goes into a Truman Show-esque thing of people are watching her do all this stuff through like,
or you just. Yeah, you zoom out a bit so that the section of where the laundry is, now you can see that there's actually a barrier around, like a glass barrier around or whatever, and you see people milling about and they're looking through at her.
And then day 133.
Yeah.
No, it's just day 133, and it's just sort of letting you know that she's been doing this for the last little while, and this is her sort of life.
Yeah.
And then you can go down into, on day 134, she's waiting for like the washing to come down, and
right, something changes maybe. Yeah.
Something changes. Yeah. And then she gets a crank from the Hills Hoist. Like the Hills Hoist crank falls off or something like that. Like,
right. When the washing materializes, above the Hills Hoist or near the Hills Hoist that day in the washing basket, it happens to like be a bit closer and bumps it and dislodges the crank.
Or it's just like now that it hasn't actually been used for wet washing or something like that, or you've been given a tool to actually unscrew it or something like that instead of the wet washing. I know there's something fun that you can do there.
Happens that like they've decided to change up your routine, or there's like
I kind of like the idea that they haven't decided to change. They haven't decided to change it. The zookeeper that's on the outside
does
actually feels for you and has sort of orchestrated this thing to try and help you out to get you out of this rut.
Yeah, maybe. I kind of like the idea that you find like that some other creature in the zoo like has caused an explosion or something, right? Like they are a particular being from a hydrogen planet where, if they come into contact with an open flame, they explode. And that accidentally happened. And maybe you do find out that was orchestrated by the zookeeper, but at the time, it just like it comes over the loudspeaker or something, the Glaucon,
but it's in a
enclosure is closed.
It's
today.
In a weird language that you're
right, of course, yeah.
today.
There's just one word that's in English. But yes, and you maybe find out later that that's what happened. That's what caused the explosion. And as part of the explosion, the thing falls off the Hills Hoist. The crank falls off the Hills Hoist. And that then lets you... There are a couple of crank holes, basically, that you...
One in the kitchen.
You would have seen
one in the laundry.
Before, if you'd clicked on everything.
Yeah.
Now you can kind of get access to some different things and start solving some puzzles to, like... figure out a translator or whatever.
I like the idea that as she goes to walk, like outside of the area, and she goes, like, I literally can't walk any further. Like, why not? She goes, and it's just like
you see the barrier, for sure.
Because I know there's something about making it look as though she's just in like a normal farmhouse or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. It's essentially almost a simulated thing, or it's partially there,
or it's literally when the bit of land, the bit of land that they abducted her from included half the house. Like,
yeah, I like that they that when you maybe part of what you do is you turn off that barrier, which is essentially it's an illusion, making it look like the house continues. So when you turn it off, you just see that actually, no, the house was completely sheared in half at that point. And then that's sort of maybe the way you can escape, or...
As long as the final shot of the game is this thing that's been returned perfectly, except for the old part of the house that's been on Earth is kind of like sagged in a bit and like doesn't quite match. And then you see the skeleton of the kids.
That's dark.
It's only in the corner.
Maybe the dog. Or maybe
she was a single parent and she never came home to feed her kids.
Maybe you see half the skeleton of the dog.
Oh no. Oh no, that's worse.
Well, I think you the last shot is you see where the farmhouse was taken from. There's like the huge hole in the ground, and then it just falls from the sky and misses. Like it's halfway in, tilts, everything explodes.
Zooms out, and you hear sirens and like, the Men in Black sort of coming, like black vans coming in as like
right, yeah.
Day 135.
You get home in one day. I don't know.
They've got the technology.
We have the technology. But anyway,
it ends with she's back, and she goes, "Was this a dream?" And then she reaches down and feels her crank. And it's like,
Tammy Crankmeister in
Escape from Planet MB204.
204. All right. Well, look, that was fun. It was. Thanks, Ron Gilbert and Monkey Island, for inspiring this episode. Maybe we'll do another one of these sometime, particularly leading up to the Adventure Jam if we do end up doing that. But, hey, if you would like to...
I kind of want to give this game a go. Like, I think this could be pretty simple. Like,
I think this one's a bit too high in scope. If you could think of doing it in a single, like keeping it in the single location, bring the scope down, maybe we can talk about it off air. So look, if you would like to listen to our previous episodes, there are a bunch of them, and you can find them at podchaser.com/bitstorm. Mm-hmm. Leave us a review. Leave us an episode review on the ones that you like. If you liked this one, if you had any ideas from, that spawned from our prompts or our discussions, we would love to hear them. And hey, for all of April, Podchaser is doing Reviews for Good, where they're donating money to World Kitchen. So leave a review and you will help that, and we will reply to it because that will also double the amount.
And Ben will reply personally if you do to any of ours because he's part of Podchaser. So,
well, but I will reply as Bitstorm because that is a thing that Podchaser can do.
Maybe it was me then. I don't know whether I did that.
Who knows?
If you like the theme that we play at the start and end of each episode, that is called Mount Defiance of the album Containment Failure by the band Kuradust. The song is for free on Bandcamp. You can Google it. It's cool.
It's cool. That's right. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
So where are you going, kids?
Australian lighting.
What the fuck? Oh god, you're pulling some weird ones.
Fucking reference. Right? Oh fuck.
Jesus. Where are you going? Australian lighting. We should do adventure game just based on old Australian TV ads. Hello. Frank Walker, National
from
Tiles.
National Tiles.
Grand sale.
We would have to get like Frank Walker to actually do a
you
fucking
totally could.
voice.
Yeah, you could.
Hello, Frank Walker from National Zoo.
Just getting him as the announcer of the zoo.